Alright, I'll be honest, I haven't been on YouTube a whole lot lately. But outside of like watching videos to kind of like, I guess, prepare me for whenever I want to make this next project on how to approach it. But occasionally, I'll see videos in my recommended because, I watch channels like Drama Queen and Halo Haley and Ready to Glare that we're gonna get some like copycat channels that talk about stuff that the topics are always shifting like tones. Like, how do you go from talking about like boy moms to the worst mom on TikTok to talking about some people that are getting exposed for being anime tourists because of how they ranked anime? Now, I don't care about the situation. In fact, this video is making humor and light of the situation. I'm gonna talk about my newfound appreciation for anime that's probably gonna have some interesting uh, commentary that we can discuss in the comments. But outside of that, I was someone that was never really into it because it's just when I grew up with it, it was like there was negative connotations towards liking it. And for a long period of time, like really, it was not until I saw a video of the Cowboy Bebop game on the PS2 that I wanted to watch Cowboy Bebop, and finally watched Cowboy Bebop, and eventually got into other good stuff. But basically, I didn't care about anime until this year. I'm 22, and it's great for what I watched, and I have some different opinions towards what I did watch that may be hot takes. But next to that, honestly, I do plan to make a video in the future talking about more in depth of like there's a lot more I could say about anime, but that's not what this video is. So, anyways, let's start ranking the animes that I did watch. Anyways, let's get into it. So, Cowboy Bebop, I watched. Did I finish it? No, I didn't finish it, but I just started watching a retrospective of Cowboy Bebop, and I'm not really surprised. For a long time, just not even knowing much about anime, Cowboy Bebop is held to the highest regard possible in terms of like influential for many reasons. Just the backstory of how it came to be, the notorious stories behind the scenes, and obviously, the music, the characters, the storytelling, through the also world building as well. I feel like I made it a tier specifically just so I can prove my point that I don't hold it to that high regard. The only reason why I have that there is just so I can put it in S tier. And I'm gonna put what I personally think is what I do hold to a higher regard. Now, don't get me wrong, Cowboy Bebop is fantastic. I completely understand why people hold it to that high regard. But after watching the stuff that I did in terms of like whereabouts in the show that felt impactful, I agree completely with those episodes. And I'm going to say right now why the show is there is for the character-centered or character-driven centered episodes specifically. We're not counting the movie. We're not counting the other episodes. That's where Cowboy Bebop stands on the tier. Now, because of that, the show isn't perfect, and that's why I'm putting it in S tier. Now, we'll get into my picks where I'm going to actually put in Cowboy Bebop, but let's get started. Akudama Drive was something that I heard that the music was good, so I checked it out. The music was fine. I originally was not fond of this series until I got into like maybe episode 5, and that's when it started getting way better. Like after the first couple episodes, the main hook of this series was just the characters, the chemistry between all the characters, and the story just got really interesting and started introducing more characters and like the backstory behind a whole bunch of lore and whatever. Personally, I will say that in terms of endings, like there's a lot of anime or there's animes on this list, like we can just talk about the endings in general. With Cowboy Bebop's ending, like I would again, if the show was perfect, I would definitely put it in Cowboy Bebop. But like the ending for this show was so good. It was one of my favorites, but together as a collective, I don't think that this show is excellent by any means. I think it's a great show, and in fact, it actually a lot of the there's something about it that kind of just reminded me of like a Yu-Gi-Oh vibes at points, and Cutthroat's voice acting is so good, and the English dub it like he is like one of the most insane characters I've ever heard. And we're gonna put I've been thinking about between A and B for Akudama Drive. Um, I think because I feel like B is is appropriate because it does take a little bit to get to that point and where the show actually gets good. But yeah, in terms of this ranking, like starting off from like just an introduction to anime. I'm only watching the English dub versions. So when I do get to a controversial take, and I will say that there are some, I can admit that there will probably be animes that are better listened to with in how it's supposed to be watched. I still think, just like for my beginning stance, I'm just going by the English dub versions. Now, then we get to Lazarus, and Lazarus is excellent. I really don't have much to say, like, negatively about Lazarus. I don't think it's perfect by any means. I think it's a solid A tier anime. The soundtrack is phenomenal, and Bonobo is an genius when it comes to the music. I listened to Bonobo's discography, a fantastic artist. You need to listen to Bonobo if you haven't listened to Bonobo. This anime is great. The storytelling was fantastic. I actually like felt the weight of like whenever the show felt like it was, or whenever the show was moving more towards like getting intense. I felt that weight. There's not a lot of shows that like have that like, okay, there's a couple episodes like where like it's getting intense, like what's gonna happen. And also like the ending credits for the Lazarus was like it was a genius was a genius move, because if you know then and you know how the show ends, I think it's fantastic with this show. I liked most of the characters. I wasn't a fan of one of the side characters. I already forgot her name. She was kind of annoying, but she wasn't in the show for a whole long time. And honestly, when I watch this show, I just think about just like classic just playing GTA missions together with your friends. That's kind of the vibe I got with the group, the cast of characters that are focused on the mission to finding what's his face. We're gonna go A tier. Fantastic show. All right, Black Lagoon was something that I didn't even know about. I didn't know anything about Black Lagoon until Race Kick video on Perfect Dark. So yeah, I saw like I think like a couple seconds. I'm like, I'm gonna watch this, and yeah, this show is fantastic. I regarding everything about it, there is some things that kind of take off points. Specifically, I don't feel like the music is as memorable as the other animes. I do think that the action, the storytelling is phenomenal. I do think that the lead up to the ending is more impactful than the ending itself, and the ending kind of leaves you on like not a cliffhanger, but if they were to do another season, you know exactly what they were going to do for that next season, and just for that alone, I don't like that. I do like the point. I do like the part leading up to the ending, though, like with the intensity and the final battles and stuff like that. And for that reason alone, I do think that in terms of rewatchability, it's definitely going to be more fun to rewatch than Akudama Drive. I'm going to put it next to Lazarus. I think that's a solid spot. All right, now we're getting to easily one of the goats. All right, yeah. Now we're getting to one of the goats. Um, this is going to be the first time that I'm going to put this here, and the main reason why is because this show is kind of like what how people talk about Cowboy Bebop is how I'm gonna talk about Samurai Champloo. Literally everything about it. I don't have any issues with this show. I don't think there's any bad episodes compared to like the the lowest rated episode of Cowboy Bebop. The music as just like Cowboy Bebop, it's influential, and the main reason why I'm putting this here is because I do think that this show deserves the recognition that Cowboy Bebop gets. Some people may argue that it's already well known, well talked about, but it's still not held to the high regards in terms of like pop culture icon that like Cowboy Bebop is, and it deserves to be there. Phenomenal show. You need to watch it. All right. Okay. This order is messed up. So I do believe then we get to another goat. Now, all right, before we talk about this goat, I really like, in terms of like watching these shows, I kind of like, I didn't feel an impact of like, that a lot of people kind of describe when they watch animes, like, going about the story that, or like you get lost in a story for, whatever, 26 episodes, whatever, how many amount of episodes. You get lost in the atmosphere of the show, the world building, everything about it is just so captivating and well done that you almost forget that you're watching an anime until I got to this show. This show, to me, is probably going to be my favorite anime. I don't think there will be any show that will replace this anime because this was the first show that I actually felt an emotional connection with in terms of everything. Literally everything. I could listen to the music outside of the show and still feel the same impact as the show itself. The This show's story is so good, and if I'm gonna ever make another retrospective outside of the retrospective that I'll be working on in the future, it will be a retrospective of this anime. This anime deserves so much more appreciation and praise. Yoko Kanno's best work for what I've heard out of so far, and I don't think there'll be, like I said, I don't think there'll be anything that will be replacing this show. This show deserves the love. Wolf's Rain is phenomenal. If you haven't watched Wolf's Rain, you need to watch Wolf's Rain. I know that it's not going to be for everybody because, it's essentially like watching a movie, a very long movie with how invested you will get into everything about it. And the soundtrack kind of displays that very well. Like the music, in my opinion, is almost kind of reminds me of like John Williams at times. It is so unbelievably amazing. You need to watch it. All right, and then we get to something that was a short-lived but very well done experience. I don't really have much negative things to say about this one, except for the fact that you can't listen to really most of the score almost anywhere. Like you can listen to some parts of the score, like definitely on YouTube, but outside of that, the soundtrack is kind of inaccessible outside of like YouTube, which is a shame because the show was great. Um, it was very dark, and there was one scene that I still find very hard to wrap my head around on how it makes sense in general. But outside of that, it had one of my favorite scenes from any piece of media ever, which was like really, really well done. I know a lot of people tend to call this one underrated, and I completely agree. It's a phenomenal show. Now in terms of where to put it though, I don't want to put it in the as high regard as, Wolf's Rain and Samurai Champloo. So I think it does deserve to be next to Cowboy Bebop. The anime, not the tier. Terror Resonance is phenomenal. And that scene with the, if you know the scene with the Ferris wheel, like that scene is just absolutely peak animation right there. And the song that plays is just as peak. All right. This next one, I always forget the name. It is Sarazanme. I thought I had another tab open, but I don't. Anyways, yeah, this one's a weird one. I going in the show, the best way I describe this show is like anime brain rot with some good storytelling afterwards. Like that's the best way to describe this show. To explain this concept, just it's so hard to explain. And honestly, even I don't even think I understand the full concept of it. It's kind of one of those just shows you have to like rewatch at least twice to understand the whole premise. But really, like it is just a weird. It's a really weird show with a great soundtrack. Um, and I do think that this is probably one of the shows that it would be better to listen to or to watch in the original way it's intended instead of the English dub. But the English dub does make one of the characters really funny, so I don't know. I do think that this is a solid B tier show. I think I would put it like, or I mean, yeah, cause shoot, this one's a tough one. You know, I'm gonna just put it next to Akudama Drive. Sure. All right. So now we're just gonna knock off the. After I watched the show, I looked up. The only reason why I was watching these shows like in these specific orders was because I was just looking for animes with good soundtracks outside of Black Lagoon because that one was kind of just found it online, looks cool, seems cool, checked it out. Now, I was kind of staying away from like just the most popular stuff. I just wanted to go through stuff that like get a description of like what the soundtrack was going to sound like, and you know if it was underrated, underappreciated, or experimental. Sarazan Win 8, whatever it's called. That one's experimental, so I was like really into it, and the fact that they had like the weird like musical segments that were that had some pretty catchy songs. If I'm being honest. Outside of that, we got into this list where I started kind of getting a little bit more. All right, you know, like I'll watch it, I'll check it out, and for the life of me, I cannot understand. And I don't know if this is the case, but if you watch the English dub version of Soul Eater, I think you're doing yourself a disservice because genuinely I could not stand it. I really can't. I got into there's this one character that is so fucking annoying that I just couldn't stand to watch the rest of the show. And I will definitely come back to the show and watch it in the way it's intended, but the English version of this show is downright unwatchable because of some of the voice acting. And I understand why people like the show. You know, there's a lot of good things to like about this show. The music is great for the most part. The opening definitely has a lot more to desire. But the ending song is very catchy. It's very good. The overall animation in general reminds me of like Cell Damage, like PS2 early Xbox graphics level, which is pretty cool. But it's that damn fork in the road that I just cannot get past. Now, on the better side of things, I have not finished Black Cat, but Black Cat has a little bit more reason to watch it. I don't have really a lot of issues with it outside of the balancing between like what's supposed to be serious and what's supposed to be comedic. I feel like the balancing between those two things just aren't done as well. It just fails at both. So yeah, we're gonna go C tier. I have not finished it. I will go back to it, but it's a weird one, to say the least. Then we get to a fantastic one. I don't know. I feel like anybody that knows this one knows that it's just a great piece of animation. The animation is fantastic. The music is excellent. The overall the storytelling with the characters, everything about it is just it's phenomenal. I really my main draw to this animation or to this anime specifically was the animation itself. The animation is so damn good. And really there's one specific episode or one specific scene that I always think about when I think about this anime, and honestly getting close to the end with a lot of the like the character growth is absolutely phenomenal. That I wasn't expecting to like a show about ping pong as much as this show um presented. It's just very high quality storytelling for something centered around a sport. I don't know. I do think that this is an S tier show, and I'm gonna put it next to Terran Resonance. So yeah, that's my opinion. Call me a tourist. I do own some things that will denounce that claim, but whatever. Peace.